It is great to have my guest back again today, John Hamer, author, researcher, and I think I'm going to say now, our man in Britain. The Ken Matthews podcast has a man in Britain, which is very, very exciting because that's really one of the inflection points. Is it not? Not just Britain, but the EU now is wackadoo, and your expertise is history, of course, but I
Yeah.
want you to talk about your new novel first, so I
Okay.
don't forget to talk about it.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Ken. It's good to be back. Nice to see you again. Yeah. I mean, the new novel. Yeah, we wrote, myself and my co-author Andy Ross wrote a novel last year, which was published last year. Wrote it the year before, actually, but yeah, it was published last year, and it's called 60 Degrees South. And basically, it's about the fact that you're not allowed to travel beyond 60 degrees south. And we're not just making that up; that is actually real. There is something called the UN Antarctic Interceptor Force, which do not tolerate any planes or ships or boats or any craft whatsoever, balloons, whatever,
Hmm.
traveling beyond the 60th parallel south. And, it kind of begs the question why? What's going on down there that they don't want us to know about? So this is the premise of the novel, and it is just a novel, but it's full of truth bombs. It's all, there's all
Mm.
sorts of stuff that we weave into there. We talk about Operation High Jump, which was
I remember.
some people may have heard of that, which was an American naval expedition. And it was a massive, massive deal. It was a big expedition, thousands upon thousands of Navy personnel, dozens and dozens of ships and planes and helicopters. And that was in the late 1940s. So yeah, it's very strange what's going on down there. So without giving the plot away, it's just a novel, a speculative novel, if you like, on what is really going on down there, because there's no doubt about it. There is something very sinister going on down there that they don't want us to know about. What that is, your guess is as good as mine, but again, it's all in the novel kind of thing. So that's called 60 Degrees South. And then we just this very week actually published a follow-up called 100 Degrees South, which is an extension. It's a sequel, if you like, to 60 Degrees South, which ended on quite a
Wow.
cliffhanger.
Okay.
And yeah, and it's about, again, it's about Antarctica, but it's also about the powers that shouldn't be, as we call them.
Oh, that's a
What?
great line.
Yeah, the powers that
Uh,
shouldn't be. Yeah,
yeah, I like that.
yeah. Yeah, it's about them and what the machinations that they get up to in terms of they're trying to reduce the population. They're trying to convince us about man-made global warming, which is all, as far as I'm concerned, absolute nonsense. So we
It
kind
is.
of weave all that stuff into it. And there's lots of little subplots going on in there as well. But yeah, I mean, the feedback has been absolutely amazing. We've had such good feedback and testimonials. And there's a website called 60-degrees-south.com, which is our
Okay.
website. And there's all the information about the book and how to buy it and everything on there. So, yeah, anybody who's interested in that particular episode in our current situation, that's the place to go.
Do you find that it's easier to take on or do a novel and fill it with what do they call that? Do they call that a true life novel or there's a term for that? I forget what it is. But do you find it
Uh,
easier to put the truth and the facts and all these actual historical
yeah,
nuggets in the frame of a novel than having to deal with the
yeah,
nonfiction barriers?
yeah. Well, we call it faction, which is a cross between fact and fiction.
Faction.
Yeah, it's just something we made up, but I don't know. Maybe
Well,
that is a
the algorithms just now the algorithms of MI6 and MI5 said you just started your own faction.
yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah,
Oh,
but to answer your question, yes. Somebody suggested to me a few years ago, why don't you write novels about this stuff? Because it's going to be, in some quarters, it's going to be more easily acceptable, and it might just get one or two people thinking and doing their
mm-hmm,
own research a little bit, because it's quite acceptable to write about stuff that people regard as conspiracies as fiction, but
mm-hmm.
not as fact. A lot of people just reject it immediately. Oh, that's just a conspiracy theory. It's absolute nonsense. But if you write it as a novel and yet fill it with the truth, with truth bombs, it becomes more acceptable. And in fact, we've had quite a few feedbacks where people have said to us, wow, this has really got me looking into this stuff. I didn't realize any of that. Thank you very much for opening my eyes. Oh, and by the way, I've started looking at other stuff as well, which I just dismissed. So yeah, it's a great way, in our view, of actually, bringing new people into the fold, if you like, into the truth fold. So
Excellent
yeah,
idea. I mean, Hollywood's been doing it for years, and
exactly. It's like
and at
playing at
this
their own game. Yeah,
exactly. And then you look at mainstream media, the BBC or the
yeah,
networks in the United States, they've all become fiction, really. So it's kind of like
yeah.
what I mean, I think, it's kind of like you're going to get more out of Hamer's fiction book than you will out of some history professor that, was indoctrinated under
Right.
Howard Zinn, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
So
So,
let's
so on.
talk about chemtrails a little because
Right.
about 3 weeks ago here in the States, or what you would call the colonies, because you still think I'm a subject, um, but I'm not.
And neither am I, by the way.
Good, good. Um,
He's not my
they,
king. Sorry, go on.
he's not mine either.
No,
I think
no, no.
I think the whole royalty thing is silly anyway, and I'm not just talking about the wigs because we wore wigs. We wore wigs for the longest time. So
Sure.
it's not about the wigs. But about 3 years ago, or sorry, 3 weeks ago, there was a big story about chemtrails in the US. And people were
Okay.
saying, okay, we finally admit it. And it
Yeah,
seems
yeah,
like this is having read your big giant book, and you have a bunch, but when you go through history and you break these things down, it's amazing how sometimes it takes 30 or 40 years for people to
yeah,
say, oh yeah, you're right. There was more than two shooters at Kennedy,
yeah,
at the Kennedy assassination. Oh yeah, you're right. They do have an area in aircraft where they can spray contents that you're not allowed to hear about. And
yeah.
it's amazing that the pushback was so severe. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to see, well, for example, last week, Barack Obama said he believes in UFOs. I don't know if you saw that,
No,
but
but
he,
yeah,
but he,
believe it.
but he said, I don't know if they're at Area 51, but I'm not going to say I don't believe in them. So, what is this all about? Do you think this is some type of psyop, or do you think people are really beginning to believe
I
that
think,
this stuff exists?
yeah, sure. I think that, yeah, I think sometimes they're forced to make gentle admissions about certain things because of a weight of public opinion to shut people up in many cases. And I think sometimes they feel that pressure to do that, but often that's with a caveat. But it's because blah 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 blah. But yes, we're definitely doing it, but it's not what you think. It's this, it's X, it's Y, it's Z, but it's not what you think. And so I think that happens a lot, not just with chemtrails, but with lots of other disclosures that they somehow are forced to make. I mean, there is something called hiding things in plain sight as well. So quite a lot of the time, they they will tell you about stuff, but just
Hmm.
enough to kind of just satisfy their own or fend off their own karma, if you like, because these people really believe in karma. Okay, they really, really believe in karma, and they believe that by telling us a little bit about what they're doing exonerates them. So
Hmm.
it kind of neutralizes the karma that they would get otherwise for lying. So there is an element of both of those things, and yeah, chemtrails is a great example. Chemtrails, UFOs, they kind of fall into a similar category. By the
Yes.
way, we talk about UFOs in the not in the first two books that I've mentioned, but there is a third book coming out, which is
Holy
kind
moly,
of
John.
addressing the UFO thing and
Can we
what we
please
believe
catch
is
up
going on.
with can we please catch up with your library?
Sorry. Yeah, I know.
So,
It's
but it's interesting you brought up UFOs, chemtrails, and of course, what are the big things? The crop circles, right?
crop circles. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
what you just brought up, and you mentioned this in your book, the crop circles is a great example because it's a physical impossibility for humans and our current technology to make some of the crop circles. So what they do is
Yeah.
like they did in your neck of the woods. They came out with those goofy drunk guys hanging out at the bar thinking, and
Ken
then
and
they
Dave.
attach it to them, right?
Yeah.
And then the lazy researcher reads a blip on BBC and says, "Oh, you
Yeah.
believe in crop circles? They're made by those drunk guys."
Yeah.
Or and then they put that little caveat that you just spoke of in every single thing that we should be concerned about. Like chemtrails is they've been dumping chemicals on the population for how long now? Since the 50s?
Yeah. Certainly since the 90s. I mean, chemtrails have been prevalent since the mid 90s. I don't know how far back they go, but certainly the last 30 years anyway.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I'm thinking crop dusting because I know in the 50s.
oh, crop just. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
so they had the technology and they had the concept, and it's funny
yeah,
because for every good person, just like in your monarchy, for every good person in your monarchy, there's someone in our broken republic that wants to do the right thing, right?
yeah.
There's good people. They say, look, we can spray this on the crops and kill all the bugs, and then there's another lunatic, some cultist or satanic freak that says, better yet, we can spray it on the children.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, crop dusting it doesn't actually take place much in this country because the farms in this country, they're not like ranchers in the States. They're not like
Hmm.
hundreds and hundreds of miles of stuff. They tend to be much much smaller operations. So there's not that much crop dusting from planes goes on as such. It's more a kind of a localized thing in a smaller
Hmm.
environment. But yeah, crop dusting was a massive thing, wasn't it? Especially as you say, since the Second World War,
Right.
and even prior to that, I guess. But yeah. So I'm sorry, I've forgotten what the original
Oh,
question was now.
we were just talking about this kind of evolution of chemtrails and
Right.
this
Yeah.
generational denial of
Yeah.
uh and you talk about again, your books are so thorough historically. You talk about all the things that now are coming out to be true, like what they put in toothpaste and why they
Yeah.
alter water from different jurisdictions and counties. And
Yeah.
but the
Yeah. Yeah.
chemtrails thing is people would just ignore it and they totally deny science on it, what causes a
Yeah.
chemtrail and the altitude. And tell us more about chemtrails and the difference between like a vapor trail, which it makes total sense,
Yeah.
versus the chemtrails, which are regular occurrences over most populated areas now.
Yeah. Almost everywhere in the Western world, in fact. Yeah. There's nowhere that escapes it. We know that there's a company in the UK that specialises in it because we've researched it. When I say we, myself and my co-author Andy on the latest books, because again that comes into the latest book, Chemtrails, and we know that this goes on because we researched it. There is a company in the northeast of England, about 100 miles, perhaps a bit less than that, about 60 miles north of where I live on the northeast coast. There is an airport called Teesside Airport, which is a very tiny airport, but there are based all the chemtrail planes. And we know exactly what they do. They employ people who are not aware that what they're doing is wrong because they're told a ridiculous story about, it's to help, it could be to help seed clouds. They talk about seeding clouds a lot. And these guys just think that's what they're doing. They think they're dropping these particulate heavy metals on clouds to create rain in areas where they need the rain for the crops or whatever, whatever nonsense. But there's lots of that kind of explanation going on. So the majority of them, we believe, don't even know that what they're doing is really wrong and actually what effect they're having on the population. But we know that the dropping particulate heavy metals such as aluminium, what's the other ones? Barium, quite a few others, and it's having a serious effect on people's health. There's no doubt about it. And we talked very briefly off air when I first came on to the podcast
Mm-hmm.
about the fact that I've got a really bad cold and sore throat, and
Right.
everybody in this area has got it. Just about everybody. And every day we're just saturated with these bloody things, these chemtrails. So what's the difference between a chemtrail and a contrail? Basically, the chemtrail is full of it's a deliberate act of basically genocide, I believe. There's no doubt that it's killing people. Absolutely no doubt at all. Contrails are just normal vapor trails that occur at a certain height when a plane is at a certain height and the atmosphere is at a certain temperature. Chemtrails, the planes that drop the chemtrails or create the chemtrails more accurately are never higher than never lower than 15,000 feet and never higher than 20,000 feet. And it's so easy to spot them because they don't fly in straight lines. A regular commercial flight flies in straight lines, but you can see these guys, they do, 90-degree turns. They even do circles.
Oh my gosh.
Turn back.
Yeah, it's like a tic-tac-toe board sometimes.
Yeah, and then
people never they never calculate that. They go, "What? No. Have you ever? Can you imagine being on the 727 or whatever that's going like this? That would be very uncomfortable for the people." But yet you have and the excuses are good. You have to admit the excuses they make are great. Like we're seeding clouds, they're military on drill, all this stuff. You guys got a lot of that going on in Britain. There's always military on drill.
Yeah,
always.
But I mean, the other thing is that they don't occur absolutely every day, most days. But if these were regular commercial flights, scheduled flights, they'd be flying the same route in the same day at the same time, more or less. But that doesn't happen. Some days we've got clear blue skies. Today isn't one of them. It's totally clouded over. It's just a grey mess up there. But but on blue sky days, why do these things not occur? It just doesn't make any sense unless you believe what we're saying.
And we do have proof. I mean, you've shared it in your book, and other authors have researched it, that there are phantom systems or systems that mirror, like in, I think you were talking, I don't know if I think it's in your book or maybe it was another research piece I did about commercial airlines, because of their altitude ability and their normalcy. There was a separate system inside, and this guy had to go, and the airport, the airline mechanic who was not scheduled, he was called in for an emergency, and he had to fix this system. And he said, "This isn't even the system on the schematic. Where are these tubes going?" And then it turned out they went out to the wings, and he go, "What are you doing releasing stuff out on your wings? What is this?" And then the threats came, right?
That's right. Well, that incident you're talking about, that was actually a whistleblower that came forward. A guy who, as you say, had been an aircraft engineer. I can't remember all the details now because it's a long time since I wrote that piece. But I mean, this was a genuine whistleblower who actually laid it all out, exactly what happened. And as you say, he was called in for a meeting. He was threatened and all the rest of it. I can't remember whether he lost his job or whether he resigned or whether he just picked up where he left off. I can't remember that. But that you've probably read it since I wrote it. Well, much more recently than I wrote it. I mean,
they kept making his life more difficult. There were some untraceable threats, which I believe happened, but they just said, "Okay, you're not going to be servicing in this area anymore." And then, "Okay, we're going to keep you on, but apparently you can't follow directions, so we're going to move you over here." I mean, it's the same thing that anybody who tells the truth gets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is it you can't follow directions? You're not playing along, so we're going to destroy you.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. I seem to remember there was something about what they call the honey wagons, the big container trucks that empty the sewage from the planes. There was something about that as well, wasn't there, involved in that story? But again, memory.
It's okay to say poop if you want.
Okay.
This is an American podcast. Yeah. It's not
right.
I don't know what you guys call it in Britain now. Is there some new slang now?
Just call it poo without the P in the end.
Oh, well, that is more elegant.
It's more British, isn't it? More British.
It is,
Much more
yes.
British. Yes.
I've got to take a poo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where's this
So
podcast going, Ken? Come on.
God, I don't know. My wife asks the
The
same thing
gutter.
every day. So chemtrails continue, and you know who admits to chemtrails, and Robert Kennedy Jr., RFK Jr.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about him, he's our Secretary of Health, whatever. He's an odd guy. He's an odd bird. However, he calls attention to all this stuff that many of us have been calling attention to for years. So on one
Right.
hand, I'm like, what are you, I'm like, sometimes I wonder what he's doing. But then the next day he'll come out and say, look, the food pyramid is wrong. We're putting too much chemicals on corn. There's a bunch of garbage in toothpaste, and we have to
Mm,
stop chemtrails. And then I'm like, oh my gosh. So
mm.
I wonder where this is going. If you think it's one of those, they're just throwing a little out. Like, are we getting chemtrails now to keep us off of Epstein?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder, are UFOs coming now because we're going into Iraq in a few days?
Yeah, well,
I
there's a
mean,
lot of that goes
Iran.
on, isn't there? Distraction tactics. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of it goes on, and as you say with RFK, I'm not sure where the guy comes from at all. I mean, like you say, a lot of the stuff seems to be kind of hitting the target, but other stuff, you know, I can't think of anything specific, but I remember reading stuff that is said, and I'm thinking, this guy's not on our team. He's not.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
can't
think he
figure
is.
them out.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
So what's the status of UFOs in your country? Are people still do you still get made fun of, or do they start saying, you got a point? Because I know there were some
Uh,
British fighter pilots that also claimed to have seen unidentified flying objects. I don't know what they call them now. It's probably some woke thing that they're calling them.
Yeah, I think there is a new name for them, isn't there? But yeah, I mean, when you think about the term UFO, though, slightly digressing, but UFO just means unidentified flying object. So it could be anything, it could be a bird. A bird could
True.
be a UFO, couldn't it? So anyway, that's beside the point. I get the point you're making. Well, in Britain, we've not heard about UFOs for absolutely ages. Well, I certainly haven't. So there's been nothing much going on with UFOs. But my own personal view of UFOs is that they don't come from outer space. I don't believe that they come from outer space. I believe whatever they are certainly within our realm.
Yes.
Whether it be from beyond the Antarctic ice wall, you see, because that's another possibility. It might be that the Earth is much bigger. In the book 60 Degrees South that I mentioned earlier, there's a map in there that we've copied, and it sits in the lobby of the UN building in New York City. Okay, and
Hmm.
it's a map of the world. It looks like the normal world. Down, if you imagine the screen that I'm sat in now, that square,
Right.
down in this corner down here is our world, and all around the outside of it there are hundreds of other different continents. Now, what's all that about?
That
That
is
hangs
weird.
in the lobby of the UN building. I'll send you a copy of the map after, actually, if you like.
That is weird.
Yeah. So, that kind of leads me to speculate that there is something very, very different about beyond Antarctica. For example, that you're not allowed to fly over Antarctica. You're not just even allowed to traverse across it to get from, say, Santiago in Chile to Sydney, Australia, which would be the shortest route.
Yeah, I was
If,
going to
if
say no shortcuts.
No, you're not allowed to go. You've got to go the long way around. So, yeah, what's going on there? It could be, to get back to the UFO point, it could be that this is where UFOs are from, and they don't want us to know that. For some reason, they're keeping that bit of the map, the globe, or whatever it is, flat plane, whatever, a secret. And they just don't want us to know that there are lands beyond Antarctica. I don't know. It's just speculation, but
It's
I'm just
interesting because
throwing it out there.
so much of it is not spoken about. Like
Yeah.
in a science class, in a typical science or environmental class, they won't even discuss certain things. And
No.
that's what I thought that's what education's job was. I thought you were supposed to explore and push and they go up to, it seems like every body of information that's being sifted through mainstream education, which I think most of it's indoctrination,
It
has
is.
these borders around it. This
Yeah.
is how
Yeah.
far you can go with
Yeah.
civil rights issues. This is how far you can go with regional, you know,
Yeah.
international policy. This is, you can only go this far with the UFO. You can say this,
Yeah.
but you can't say that. Like, who's to say exactly what you just said, as far as it could all be within our realm, and every time there's a security breach, they just rename it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I mean, you're right about education. It's not really education. It's just indoctrination, propaganda, whatever you want to call it. It's just their way of grabbing children while they're still malleable and teaching them the agenda that they want them to know. What is really going on in the world, or what they want us to think is going on in the world. That's all education is. It's just
And
to
you
grab people while they're young and
you see
malleable.
that with what you said earlier
Yeah.
about the climate change hoax, which is the carbon footprint is one of the greatest hoax in the world. It's one of the greatest. I mean, whoever came up with that and said, we're gonna measure carbon, which you need to live, and we're
Yeah.
just gonna charge you for it. I mean, you got to admit, from an entrepreneurial standpoint,
It's
as
genius.
far as being a shyster or a wizard that goes around and says, I've got this magic elixir for you, and it's only $1 billion a year for your carbon
Yeah, yeah,
footprint. And people accepted it, and they totally rejected science, though.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's genius, evil genius, but it's
Yes.
genius. These people are masters at manipulating the human psyche, absolute masters at it. And not just that, they're masters at manipulating us into a position where they can extract even more of our income from us. And this is just another way of doing that. And it's also another way of, as well as making huge amounts of. I mean, Al Gore, who produced that ridiculous film called An Inconvenient Truth in the very early 2000s. I mean, he went from being not a pauper, but I think his wealth was estimated at 2 million. It's now several $100 million. Al Gore's estimated worth.
Actually, I think he reached $1 billion after he sold Al Jazeera.
Did he? Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So he's over $1 billion. By the way,
Yeah.
here in Pennsylvania, USA, I call him Al Gore the climate whore. Um,
Yeah. Good one. I
I
like
I
that
don't
one.
know if you want to use that in one of your books, and
I'll
give me a
steal that
little
from you gladly. Thank you.
give me a little footer note in there. I don't know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Absolutely. Yeah.
you also have an interesting theory which parallels mine, and that is that, uh, at least based on what I've read, most wars are rarely started the way we're led to believe, and there is an end game or an end state to the war, whether it's
Yeah.
economic or social or
Yeah.
geographic. And that to me, that's one of the most fascinating things that I've learned since I kind of awakened from my slumber
Yeah.
back in the early 2000s. That
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
the more you look into it, you did a great section on uh, some of the terrorist things that have happened in your country, and so much of that is manipulated by the state because they're the
Yeah.
only people that have the resources. Am I right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, they have the resources. They also have the media on their side, the mainstream media, which is basically 99% of what we have access to out there. The media such as yourselves and other podcasters and very obscure truth publications only contribute a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage to the overall mass media, which, by the way, is owned by 4 corporations. The entire world's mass media is owned by 4 corporations. Anyone out there who's not heard that before, just let that sink in. All singing from the same hymn sheet. So they have this. Not only do they have the power and resources to do it, they also have the marketing team of the mainstream media to
Yes.
propound all their all their misinformation that they want us to know, or disinformation, should I say? Yeah,
I think one of the most frightening things for me right now is the not just the AI, but the digital ability they have. Because it used to be where when podcasting first came out, when the internet first came out, that's when a lot of truthers and people became awake,
yeah,
especially with 9/11. I mean, I think the internet did more for 9/11 truth than any other platform.
yeah,
But now the companies that own ABC or NBC or Fox, they own giant digital platforms, and they also own the technology like you experience in Britain. You see it in Israel, you see it all over Europe, and that's to
yeah,
control the content of the internet
yes,
digitally and uh, robotically. So
yeah,
now they can say, well, John and Ken are having this discussion. We're going to make sure that it is so far down in the algorithm
yeah,
that nobody ever hears about it. And
exactly.
unless we hire a $5,000 a week marketing company like most of the mainstream podcasters have, that's something we forget. I just learned that several of the biggest podcasters in the United States were buying followers the last quarter of last year by the hundreds of thousands because their marketing company said we'll buy followers, so
Yeah,
that'll run you up in the algorithm, and then people are born followers. They're like, well, John Hammer has 4 million followers. I'm going to follow
I
him.
wish.
Well, you
I
could
wish.
certainly buy them.
Yeah, really. Yeah, you need the money though, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, and it's I think it's tougher for you guys because you're small. I mean,
Yeah,
everything that we're discussing right now has, I think, a, a more severe impact, just like COVID, on the Isle of Britain. I mean, that we have, we have Texas and California, and we have these vast areas where there are some parts of our population that are not touched by, what did you call them again? You had a great name for the people. The people
the
in
powers that should not be.
Yes. Oh my God, I'm going to quote that. But yeah,
Yeah,
we can hide from the powers that should not be longer than you can, or
mm,
someone in a smaller place. So
yes.
how do you are there more like-minded people like you than we know about in Britain?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure there are. Yeah. I mean, there's quite a network of people doing what I do. Yeah, everybody does it slightly differently. I mean,
Hmm.
I tend to focus on falsification of history, falsification of science type topics. Other people, I've got a good friend called Mark Devlin. Have you ever interviewed Mark?
Yeah, I've heard of him. I have not read him though.
No, I mean, he's not a great writer, bless him. He's a good speaker, though. My goodness, he can really hold an audience. He's a great speaker, and he talks about the corruption in the music industry and
Oh,
how that kind of permeates through society.
what's his
It's very,
last name again?
Devlin, D E
Devlin.
V Devlin, Mark. I'll put you in touch with him if you like.
Yeah, I would love to get him on. Did he do a
Yeah,
story, and I could be wrong on this? Did he do a story about some of the uh, people in the music industry that wanted to expose child trafficking, and uh, they were targeted for that? They wrote about it in their songs and whatever.
I'm not sure.
Okay, I
It
can't
sounds
remember
like the
because
sort of thing. Sounds like the kind of thing he would do.
it was a
Um,
Brit. I just can't remember the name, but I definitely would love to
yeah.
get in touch with him.
Okay, well, I'll make a note of that, and I'll put you in touch. I'll recommend you to him, and I'm sure he does a lot of podcasts. So he got his own podcast as well, actually. So
Hmm.
yeah, so yeah, I mean, he has his latest book is called "No One's Dad Is a Plumber," and what he means by that is that all these famous people, you can all trace their genealogies back to whatever royalty,
Isn't it
British
true?
royalty. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
So
one big cult, and we ain't
yeah,
in it. It's not even a
exactly. Yeah.
club anymore. It's definitely a cult, and we're finding that out as more
Yeah.
is released. So
Yeah.
the challenge is to solve it, obviously. But I
Right.
want I want you to plug your latest books again because I know your time is valuable, but I want to keep you as our man in Britain, a regular guest. So tell
Yeah, that'd be
me
great.
So if someone's heading out to buy one of your novels today, which one would you
Yeah.
recommend? Would you
Um,
recommend the Antarctic thing?
yeah, 60 Degrees South, without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, I
Okay.
did write another novel. I wrote a book called Titanic's Last Secret, but that was
Oh
about,
yeah.
well, it was over 10 years ago. And that was based on my original, the real Titanic story, which I called
Hmm.
RMS Olympic. Um, but yeah, that's another story. But yeah, certainly the latest two novels. The one that was published last year is 60 Degrees South, and it's unfortunately, because I'm in the UK and I guess most of your listeners are in the US, the only option is Amazon. I'm afraid. I'm sad to say.
Well, I guess it's convenient, right? I mean, it's like that's the other thing. What do you do?
Mm,
Like people will
yeah,
always say, don't shop here or don't do that, but sometimes you have to, and it's very frustrating for the for
yeah.
the
I mean,
for the little people.
how long will it be before Amazon takes over the world? That's what I want to know. Amazon becomes the government. I mean, it's just as an author, there is absolutely nowhere else where you can really make any money. There are one or two of the minor platforms like Lulu and one or two others, but they're so tiny compared to Amazon. I hate using them because they're an absolute nightmare to deal with as an author. Let
Hmm.
alone as a customer for other kind of products.
Yeah.
But as an author, I mean, they just walk all over you. It's absolutely appalling.
And all the
Uh,
governments, including our own, they always say, we don't want these entities getting bigger. We need to control this and we
yeah.
want independent and homegrown. And they do just the opposite. They just keep getting bigger. And like you said about the media thing, it's
Yeah.
terrifying when you scroll down and look at who owns what
Hmm.
and, when they got it.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way,
Anyway,
sorry, I was just going to
go ahead.
say, I was just going to say, it's a bit of a tangent, really, but talking about corporations and how they're out of control and they can do
Hmm.
virtually whatever they want. They're just giants who walk all over governments, basically. This is why, and getting onto a completely different tangent, this is why, but I'll just mention it briefly. Adolf Hitler was so demonized. Not because he was an evil man, I'm not saying he was an angel, but not because he was an evil man, but because he put controls on government, on corporations and banks. He really restricted them because he was all for looking after his own people. So
Hmm.
that's what really did it. And we know who owns most of the big businesses and the big banks in the world, so we don't need to mention that. So that's why he was absolutely demonized to death.
And
Just a
this
small point.
takes this takes a degree of critical thinking to even hear that with a lot of people
Yeah,
because they've been so programmed, you know.
absolutely,
But the
absolutely.
reality is that you see that same thing that's taken place in the Middle East for the last 50 or 60 years. Every major dictator,
Yeah,
Gaddafi, whatever, you can say what you want about their religion and how horrible they were, but at the end of the day, they messed with two things: currency or banks.
exactly,
And banks do not
exactly.
tolerate that. Banks will
Yeah,
not tolerate you coming up with your own thing.
yeah. And
So,
what did Hitler do? He shut down the Reichsbank, the central bank, because he knew how corrupt it was. So that
yep.
was it. They were on him
And
like
now we have one of the biggest central banks in the world,
yes,
and we're dealing
yeah,
with that. This is a good
yeah,
time to wrap it up because
yeah.
I'm already planning for our next visit. But
Okay.
I'm going to go and buy your book. You're a good salesperson.
I don't know about
I want to go
that.
buy the 60 thing, the 60-degree thing. So, uh
60 degrees south, yeah.
that's right. Give me your website again so
Right, my
people can
website,
find you.
right. Well, I'll tell you the 60 degrees south one again first. It's 60
Okay.
degrees south.com. That is just about the book and the new book, which is called 100 Degrees South. So that's that one. I've got my main website is called falsificationofhistory.co.uk. Okay, and on there, if you're in the UK, you can buy my books from there, but not if you're outside the UK. It's just impossible
Got
to
it.
come up with an algorithm that incorporates the different books and the postages and for all the
Right.
different countries. It's just not feasible. So yeah, that's the one for that. Obviously, outside the UK, Amazon is the place to go. Amazon.com or Amazon. Wherever you are. Um, just type my name into a search bar, and you'll find my author page with all my books on there. So yeah, thank you.
Well, that is great. So thank you again, John Hamer, for being on the podcast again. And
My pleasure, Ken.
I hope you're feeling better. I mean, maybe you should buy one of those newfangled masks to protect you from the chemtrails.
I never thought of that. That'd be a great idea, wouldn't it? Yeah, yeah. Or should I just go for a lie down? I think I'll do that.
Go for a lie down. That's another one you taught me today.
Really?
Well, have a good weekend coming up, sir.
Thank you. You too, Ken, and we'll speak again very soon, hopefully.